What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. As we switch gears a little bit, moving away from the X-Men titles, we are jumping into Carnage Reigns Alpha. This is picking up directly after the last issue of Carnage. If you have not been keeping up with the Carnage line, I highly recommend that you go check it out. I got links in the description and at the top of this video that you can check out from issue number 1 and show how Carnage and CLETUS Kasady, they are two separate entities right now. While Carnage is making his way to godhood, CLETUS Kasady has finally come out of his shell. He has come out of hiding, and now he is making some noise. This is Carnage versus Spider-Man. So make sure you guys have subscribed to the channel, make sure that you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright gang, so we are picking up at this diner where CLETUS Kasady was just recently eating at. The police are sectioning off the street. They are bringing in their negotiators. They believe this to be a hostage situation. Miles observing from the rooftop. He knows that this is Carnage, which means he also knows that there will be no survivors. That Miles must do something and he must do it now. He knows that he's not going to be able to rely on his spider senses, going dark to give himself a fighting chance. He makes his way into the building. As he makes his way inside, on the outside, we have the forces that are coming in that plan to take him down. As they get ready to breach the building, Miles is making his way through the building, and this is when somebody spots him. The lights go on, and this guy saying that he's trying to run a business. They can't have somebody crawling all over the ceilings. And Miles is trying to figure out what the heck is happening. These people were definitely not here before. He begins to look around this diner, trying to figure out what's happening, and that is when he sees Kenneth Neely. Kenneth Neely, the serial killer that is working with Carnage. He comes over, he sits down, he has a conversation with Kenneth. And it doesn't take long for Carnage to come up from behind him. He grabs hold of Spider-Man and he brings him in, with CLETUS now having his grasp a hold of Spider-Man. On the outside, we see that Scorpion has shown up. Scorpion is the weapon that they are going to try to use to bring down CLETUS. And so while they get ready to make their play, inside we have CLETUS that is eating away at Spider-Man. Spider-Man doing everything he can to break free of the grasp. He knows that he has to make some distance between them. The problem is, this symbiote is much different than it was before, having an almost Iron Man feel to it. With CLETUS having a brand new ride, Miles is truly in fear of what might happen next. His shoulder is on fire. He has a literal tooth that is sticking out of his shoulder. He tells himself to breathe. He sees a man that is begging for help. A man by the name of Dominic. And so Spider-Man grabs this man and he gets out of here, with CLETUS saying that he is just baiting the hook, getting ready. These soldiers and Scorpion, they make their way into the building. Room by room, they begin to clear things out. Then the walls start to come alive, with CLETUS grabbing hold of these soldiers. One by one, he rips them apart. He breaks their neck. He swallows them whole. And then he goes for Scorpion. Now Scorpion has been waiting for this opportunity to take CLETUS down. With so much CLETUS around him, this is like his Christmas. The two of them begin to brawl, and we have Kenneth, who is simply watching all of this go down. With Kenneth going on to say that he's more like a court jester to CLETUS Kasady, that he had once thought himself an artist, but he has learned that Mr. Kasady, he is the true artist, telling Scorpion that him and all of his friends, to include the spider in the attic, they are all going to die. With Spider-Man making his way to the rooftop, he kicks open the door. He gets ready to get this guy out of here, reaching out for his hand. That is when that hand turns into CLETUS Kasady. Miles thrown completely off, having no idea what CLETUS was even capable of. This was all a trap. This is when Miles throws everything that he has at him, grabbing him and throwing CLETUS right into the pavement. But another CLETUS pops up behind him. Miles is quickly seeing that he is just out of his depth, and he tells Miles that once I have killed you, I am gonna go kill your entire family. With Miles getting ready to be eaten alive, that is where Scorpion comes into play. Scorpion being very severely wounded himself. He tells Miles it's time to tap out, to get off of this building and get out of here now before it's too late. As he says this, we have CLETUS who is impaling him from behind, a tentacle through each shoulder. He tells Scorpion that none of this is personal. He apologizes to Spider-Man, Scorpion telling him that it is all on you now. This is where Spider-Man gets up to his feet. He charges up, that bioelectricity running through his veins. He puts every bit of energy into this Venom Blast, and he hits Carnage right in the chest. This is when CLETUS Kasady begins to overload, nobody knowing what is actually going on here. CLETUS Kasady has just learned what happens when a Venom Punch hits an arc reactor. Because if you remember, this symbiote is tied together with really stark tech, if you will. So it has an arc reactor. That arc reactor is now overloading. We see on that rooftop a giant explosion. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with Spider-Man and Scorpion. The two of them finding themselves underneath all the rubble of this building that has fallen, with Spider-Man asking Scorpion if they're good. Scorpion is still being kind of a bully. He's being mean. The truth is, Scorpion doesn't like Spider-Man, regardless of them helping each other out fighting CLETUS Kasady. While the two of them argue over the events that had just transpired, that's when the building, it begins to fall even more. Support beams falling, water coming in. This is an absolute catastrophe. But Spider-Man jumping into action, he saves Scorpion yet again, with Scorpion grabbing Spider-Man and kinda throwing him around for a minute. He's telling him to just consider this square, consider us even. But now the two of them must figure out a way to get out of here. But while they discuss their options, we see the tension between them. It's just so great. Scorpion has no intention of really working with him, while they really are trying to get along. It's just not working. While the two of them argue amongst themselves, this is where they find a survivor, a young woman that is stuck here trying to get out. And so of course Spider-Man jumps into action. But for Scorpion, he is too afraid that this might be a clone of CLETUS Kasady. Not wanting to take any freaking chances, he goes in to kill her. And Spider-Man tries to slow him down, tries to say, hold on just a second. The way he sees it, the both of them are busted up. Both of them are in really rough shape. There would be no real reason for CLETUS to hide himself. He is suspecting that that explosion took just as much out of him as it did them. And so, at least for now, he's temporarily agreeing with Spider-Man. As they begin to find their way out of here, they find yet another individual that is in the need of rescuing. As they are working their way to the surface, they see that a water main has busted. It is filling this place full of water. It's only going to be a matter of time before they find themselves completely submerged, that all of them are going to drown. And so Spider-Man gets an idea to break the support beams, let all the water in, hoping that this may be able to lead them to the exit, that the water will inevitably lead them back up to the surface. And it works exactly as Spider-Man had hoped, the water shooting them up to the surface. We see all four of them land up top, but Spider-Man, he's not met with praise. In fact, they are more than ready to arrest Spider-Man, throwing some cuffs on him immediately. This is where Scorpion kinda defends him. Not necessarily defending him, but saying that we could really use him on the team, especially if we have CLETUS Kasady out here. Spider-Man is resourceful, he is powerful, and he can be very useful. But while all this is going on, the man that they had rescued, he was in fact a clone of CLETUS Kasady. The red symbiote covering his body completely. He begins attacking everyone. Using electricity and tasers, our men are quickly able to bring him down to the ground. But that is only because backup has come into play. The new team referred to as the Cape Killers. We have Electro, Taskmaster, and Hightail, all members of this team coming in to take down this Carnage. But in taking it down, they learned that this was only a clone. that CLETUS Kasady isn't even here. And so Spider-Man is given an ultimatum. He can help them take down this symbiote to take down CLETUS Kasady, or he can go to jail. This is where we pick up at the Spire. Miles below New York City, we have CLETUS Kasady. We have Kenneth Neely. Everything that they had just seen was a diversion. CLETUS Kasady was never there. This is how powerful CLETUS Kasady has become. All of those clones, everything that they fought against, it had nothing to do with CLETUS. At least in the physical aspect. They were able to slip away from everybody without even being noticed. But now down here in the Spire, it looks like CLETUS Kasady is going for something bigger. And this whole town is about to remember what it is like to have Carnage's claws around their throats. Alright gang, so we are picking up with Kenneth Neely and CLETUS Kasady. And CLETUS Kasady is having to admit that when he took this iron symbiote from Tony Stark, he did this to really just prove a point. He really wasn't interested on how it works, how it operates, what it can do. At the time, he and Carnage were still kinda kicking it together. But now, he is learning that this thing has so many possibilities. Kenneth wants to know what we're gonna do next. What are they gonna do about Carnage? But CLETUS lets us know that that is gonna have to wait. Right now, he's a little bit banged up. When Spider-Man had zapped him, he did something to the Iron Man tech inside of his body. He must have fried it somehow. And so now he can feel it cooking him from the inside. He knows that he needs to get this fixed. And he knows that there is only one place that you go to fix Stark tech. And so as they take off, we pick up elsewhere. We pick up with Carnage and John Shade. We see that John Shade's head is wide open, his brain exposed. John Shade hasn't embraced being connected to Carnage. He is trying to enable it to where John Shade and him have a more perfect union. And while John Shade says that he is going to fight him, no matter what he does, even while they are in transit in the small crawl space between children's closets and every dark thought that has ever been had, John Shade is going to fight against him. But Carnage doesn't seem too concerned about this, because the more that he fights, the sooner he will break. And so while Carnage is off doing all of this, we take off to Stark Unlimited HQ. We have Kenneth and we have CLETUS Kasady that are showing up, killing a security guard right off the bat. He begins to talk to the robot scientists, as he calls them. He wants to know, where is Tony Stark? But they let it be known that he's no longer running the company. So he goes to the nearest scientist. He lets them know that he needs help with whatever is going on in his chest. The scientist absolutely stunned because this is repulsor technology. CLETUS Kasady has no idea what that means. He just knows that there's something broken and it needs to be fixed. Now this guy says there is no way he could fix it, and instantly gets incinerated. That's when Kasady points over to the Stark Sentinel, that if you guys can't sit here and fix this, if you can't repair it, then we should just replace it. Replace it with the Stark Sentinel. Now over in Brooklyn, we have the Cape Killers that are really regrouping. Miles took one hell of a beating. Scorpion is coming in to check on him, with them getting word of where CLETUS is. They patch him up, he suits up, and they head out to take him down. They head out for round 2. Back at Stark Unlimited, we see that CLETUS Kasady has taken on the full form of one of these Stark Sentinels. He has turned himself into a CLETUS Kaiju. Recognizing that these scientists could easily screw him over, he wants someone, anybody, to make sure that he has protection. When he talks to Kenneth about doing this, Kenneth has no weapon and one hand. CLETUS recognizes this to be a fact, and so he decides to give him a glow-up, taking a whole bunch of armor that is nearby, infusing it onto Kenneth's body, along with it, a little bit of symbiote. And while Kenneth thinks it is finally happening, I am finally bonding and becoming what I have always wanted to be. Kenneth is not in control. CLETUS Kasady is in control. He is using him as a drone, because CLETUS only trusts one person, and that is himself. This is where we have the speedster Hightail coming in. The Cape Killers have arrived, and so while the Kenneth symbiote, it goes to take care of this girl, we have the arrival of Taskmaster, And Taskmaster, he also gets put down very quickly. Then we have the arrival of the rest of the team: Electro, Spider-Man, and Scorpion. He tells these scientists to hurry up and that he wants access. He wants hearts and minds. He wants to be able to look at their phones at everybody. He wants everybody to be able to see him. And so while this Kenneth symbiote is currently taking care, or at least getting beat up by the Cape Killers, we see Electro trying to use electricity, only for CLETUS to throw armor all over her body, and she electrocutes herself. But Scorpion comes in with a heavy blow to Kenneth. We see Kenneth shot right out of this freaking building as he goes falling like 100 stories. They go to focus their attention on CLETUS, but he is already too late. And when Miles goes in to do his punch, it fails. It does not work. And now CLETUS Kasady, he can feel the whole building, the whole city, buzzing in the wires, the back door to everything. This entire city is about to be his. One of the scientists says that he isolated the old escape backbone so he couldn't infect any other carriers, but he's still gonna be able to reach so many people. What is happening is that CLETUS Kasady is online. He has injected himself into the building's learning neural network. From there, he can freely spread throughout any of Tony Stark's escape systems. Every host, every wire. We saw what he was able to do with Kenneth, turn him into a lethal puppet. And now he is about to do the same to the entire city. And after that, carnage will reign. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with little Stanley, the brother of Normie. Normie now being the Red Goblin. And Stanley goes up to his mom's phone, because right now there is a call coming in from Uncle Flash. But when Stanley answers this phone, he doesn't find Flash Thompson, he finds CLETUS Kasady. And while CLETUS Kasady begins to have a little conversation with Stan, Stanley tries to get off the phone, saying that he's not supposed to be talking to strangers. But right now, his mom is in the bathroom. She's taking a little bit of alone time, just taking a bath. When CLETUS goes on to say that he has a secret, Stanley puts that phone up to his ear, and CLETUS Kasady is able to take him over. With little Stanley's eyes turning red, he grabs a knife from the kitchen. He takes that knife, and he gets ready to put it right into his mother. Luckily, Normie was here. Normie staying his hand, grabbing that knife. With CLETUS Kasady still on the phone, Normie goes on to ask, "What are you doing and what have you done to my brother?" And when Rascal sees that this is CLETUS Kasady, that young symbiote begins to panic. He begins to freak out. And CLETUS Kasady, he finds it very interesting that there seems to be a small sliver of himself, an adorable little symbiote. But before this conversation can get any further, there is a giant explosion on the outside. Because right now, this city is turning into a war zone. CLETUS Kasady has been taking people over left and right. Young Stanley is not an isolated incident. And while we have Taskmaster, Electro, all of them out there fighting the best they can, this city is falling apart and it is decaying very quickly. That's what takes us over to Stark Unlimited Tower. Nobody knows where Scorpion is right now, but we see that he is in the grasp of CLETUS. And right now, CLETUS is just toying with him, just playing with him. And as he gets ready to devour Scorpion, that is where Agent Gao comes into play. Being able to make her way inside the tower, she is able to hit CLETUS before Scorpion is taken out. At this point, they have uncovered that CLETUS Kasady's consciousness, it really seems to be contained in the old Stark escape network. This means that he is largely confined to New York City itself. And while the two of them make their escape, this is when Fei Long gets on the horn. After hearing the news of the situation that is currently ongoing, he decides to send some of his Stark Sentinels to help out. And so, with the muscle on the way, we jump back over to New York City. And this is where we have Red Goblin that is on the streets. He's trying to stop and help as many people as he can. And in the midst of all of this, that is when Miles Morales comes falling from the sky. This is the first time that Spider-Man and Red Goblin have met one another. And at first, Miles not sure what to think of this situation, asking who is he supposed to be, and are we going to fight or are we working together? And while they sit in this state of confusion, that is where we have Kenneth Neely. Though he may have fallen from Stark Tower, all of the armor that he had on him, it is all protected him, with Carnage having absolute control over him. We see him go in on both Red Goblin and Miles, with Spider-Man and Normie both taking him on. We see Miles jump on his back, Normie getting thrown around, and at first they think that they're gonna run away. Rascal, to be honest, is completely scared. We gotta remember, he's a clean slate. He's a newborn symbiote, and facing against the likes of Carnage, Rascal is terrified. But Normie holds his ground. He tells Rascal that we have to help Spider-Man, with Normie jumping in as Miles is about ready to get his head freaking bit off. Normie grabs hold of Kenneth, and this is where we see a very unique ability. He begins to absorb any bit of carnage that is on Kenneth. Red Goblin is able to absorb other symbiotes. We don't know the extent of this. We don't know if this only applies to those that are infected by Carnage. And while this shouldn't be possible, Carnage is freaking out. Kenneth Neely has been freed of the grasp of Carnage, and this only infuriates Carnage more. With Carnage being over all of this, the city begins to descend on the two heroes, with Red Goblin and Spider-Man finding themselves completely surrounded, Electro and all the others being taken down. This looks like a fight that they are not going to be able to win. But that is when a giant blinding light comes from the sky, with a thunderous crash down to the ground. The Stark Sentinels have arrived. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we have CLETUS Kasady that is taking stock. We know that Carnage is out there somewhere trying to become a myth, trying to become a god. But CLETUS Kasady has been doing his own thing. While CLETUS is out here trying to take over the city, we have learned that the Osborn kid, he is able to absorb symbiote matter in some way, shape, or form. And him and Miles Morales, they have been out here trying to stop CLETUS. But CLETUS talking to himself in an empty laboratory, he's trying to figure out what he's going to do next. Thinking that maybe they've been going too small. Maybe they've been thinking too small. They've been trying to reach millions of people, but why not trillions? All of these old Iron Man armors, they could use them to build a bigger mirror. They could use them to do so much more. And so while they plot, we are taken down to the street level. Red Goblin and Miles, they are doing everything they can to hold back this horde. But it's simply not enough. With the Stark Sentinels telling everybody to clear the streets, that they are about to begin their sterilization. This is when Red Goblin gets the idea that maybe, just maybe, he can be able to absorb CLETUS Kasady, that his symbiote can kind of absorb other symbiotes. So as he tests this out, trying to absorb whatever this connection is CLETUS has over this people, he is able to free people from CLETUS's grasp. This is what gives him the idea that maybe he can also absorb CLETUS. Maybe they can bring all of this to an end. And so as Red Goblin goes on to absorb as many people as possible, absorbing all of CLETUS's control over the mob, we are seeing that this is really having an effect on him. Not sure if he is able to handle this, he is still going to try. Meanwhile, Fei Long is sending his Stark Sentinels to Stark Tower. They begin to rip at this tower, with the Carnage symbiote completely encasing the tower. The Stark Sentinels are trying to break through. They're trying to break in. And that is where CLETUS Kasady comes into play. Not being a fan of robots in the slightest bit, the battle between the two of them begins. As these Stark Sentinels begin to lay down the hate, we are seeing that these Sentinels are no match for CLETUS Kasady, which is quite interesting considering the X-Men team had such a hard time in fighting them. In fact, they had a hard time fighting one of them. But this upgraded CLETUS Kasady is able to possess them, is able to take them over for his own. The Stark Sentinels, recognizing that they are being compromised, they initiate their self-destruct sequence with a massive explosion. Miles and the rest of the team, they are making their way to the tower, knowing that this is their only option. Now, Red Goblin isn't sure if he's gonna be able to do this, but they have to try, as our heroes begin to climb, the mob following close behind them. We see that Carnage is still dealing with one of the Sentinels, and this Sentinel was able to purge successfully, able to upload some type of virus. This means that CLETUS Kasady is no longer able to broadcast his signal. He is no longer able to take anybody else over. But this came at the cost of both his Stark Sentinels. This is what gives Scorpion and the rest of the team their opportunity. They jump in at CLETUS, and we see Red Goblin doing his best to try and absorb this carnage. In doing so, he sees the ocean of cruelty. He sees the monster. He dives into the mind of CLETUS Kasady, able to see his thoughts, able to see everything that happened. We see Red Goblin almost go unconscious, with Miles recognizing that Red Goblin is not going to be able to absorb him. They grab Red Goblin and they try to make their getaway. As they jump out the window, we see that CLETUS really has turned into some kind of hideous monster, failing to do what they had planned to do. We see that CLETUS is on the run. He is out here causing all kinds of mayhem. But more than that, he has possessed some Iron Man suits, and he is going around to those that are fans of CLETUS Kasady, crazed psychopaths that live within Staten Island, New Jersey, and Queens. These are CLETUS Kasady's missionaries, his insurance policy. That's what takes us over to New Jersey. We have Tony Stark that is witnessing all of this going on, seeing that his Iron Man suits have been used in this really corrupted manner. We see Tony Stark beginning to suit up because Iron Man is now jumping into the fray. Guys, so our story starts us off with those 3 Iron Man suits, making it to these, I want to say losers, because that's really what they are at the end of the day. You're sitting here cheering on Carnage, wanting your city to fall apart, wanting Carnage to reign. They want to leave their marks on history. They don't care how or why, they just want to be remembered for something, even if it is carnage. But what they were unaware of is that these suits are imbued with carnage, with CLETUS Kasady. So when they go to put the suits on, they are completely taken over. As these 3 old Iron Man suits make their way to the battle, we are picking up in Manhattan. We are picking up with CLETUS Kasady turning into a freaking monster. The Extrembiote, the Stark Tech, all of this, he is turned into a winged, armored demon. And while the Cape Killers and Spider-Man are doing everything they can to hold him back, the truth is they are getting their butts kicked, with Spider-Man and Electro using their electrical powers. What they want to try to do is what they tried before, what they were able to accomplish before. Spider-Man had used his electric powers, and he really affected the arc reactor that is in CLETUS, hoping to have the same effect again, hoping to have that explosion. The 2 of them hit him with everything they have, and with a giant boom, they think maybe they got him, maybe they finally took CLETUS down. But as the smoke clears, we see that he is still very much alive, with Electro getting thrown around. Hightail really just in here to help everybody, to catch them as they fall, because Hightail is more or less a speedster. This is where Taskmaster takes a rocket launcher and he tries to take out Carnage that way, completely missing. We see it hit an apartment building. All of the people now crying out for help. Hightail and Spider-Man, they jump into action. Hightail grabbing the people and throwing them out of the building. Spider-Man is throwing up webs as fast as he can, and he is catching all of the innocent people caught in this fight. At this point, the Cape Killers, Spider-Man, they're all losing severely. Half of the team has been knocked unconscious, and now they are getting 3 readings of Iron Man suits making their way to the battle. Not sure if this is Tony Stark or something else. At this point, they have no idea what they're really gonna do, as Carnage is getting ready to just massacre everybody. This is where Tony Stark finally makes his arrival, coming in his night suit. The suit that he is wielding is freaking dope. He knew that Carnage would eventually climb out from whatever rock he was hiding under, and Tony has had a lot of time to prepare for this battle. He lets Carnage know that you stole the Extrembiote Armor. You turned it into some kind of monstrosity. Who better to slay the evil dragon than a knight in titanium armor? As Tony Stark increases his power, drawing all the power he has to his main weapons, he brings it down on Carnage. He hits him with everything he has. Carnage falling to the ground looking unconscious. Miles has to give him a little electrical jump because he just drained his batteries doing that heavy blow to Carnage. But by all appearances, it looks like they have won this fight. That's until we see the tentacles of Carnage make their way right into the back of Miles Morales, piercing right through his back, coming out his stomach. We see Carnage fly off. After dealing this fatal blow to Miles Morales, he takes off to the sky, with Spider-Man in a very bad position. Tony Stark uses nanite clusters. They enter the body of Miles. They're gonna speed up his recovery process. In order to make sure that he doesn't get hurt any further, they're gonna build him a special kind of cast, if you will. One that will protect him and all of his vitals. But cast might not be the best word. It's probably best to call this a suit. This is where we get a glimpse of Miles Morales, Spider-Man, as the Iron Spider. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with Miles and Tony, the Iron Spider and the Dragon Slayer. The two of them now up to 100%. Miles feeling better than he ever has his entire life. They are headed directly for Carnage. They waste no time, they get into this fight. And while they hit Carnage with everything they have, Carnage, he hits back just as hard. With them getting knocked down to the ground, Tony is recognizing that they gotta end this and they gotta end it quick. That if they continue on this city is going to be destroyed. And so Tony gets an idea. This Dragon Slayer armor isn't just for looks. He created it months ago after CLETUS had stole the Extrembiote suit. He knew he would be back, and so he prepared. What he needs to do is get inside of CLETUS. Get inside the Extrembiote armor. Inside of his suit is a special EMP, so if he can get inside and detonate, he can take out this armor completely. As he grabs his lance and shield, everyone prepares for the final push. Everybody goes in on CLETUS, and as they make their moves, they see that they are still getting freaking thrown around. With CLETUS recognizing that he needs a little bit of assistance, that's when he calls in every single person that he has infected. This city comes swarming down on them, and this is where we have the arrival of those 3 Iron Man suits, with CLETUS completely taking these men over, operating them like the puppets. We have Red Goblin, who is also jumping into this fight. Iron Man begins to take on the other Iron Man suits. While he focuses on them, we have Hightail. She is focusing on all the civilians, doing her best to knock them unconscious, but not really hurt them. They just need them out of the game. It doesn't take long, but the other Iron Man suits are quickly taken down by both Iron Man and the Iron Spider. As this fight is ongoing, we see Kenneth Neely up in the helicopter with Agent Gao. We see a small sliver of Extrembiote. It makes its way onto this helicopter, and Kenneth wastes no time grabbing hold of it, as he grabs the pilot and aims the helicopter directly to the ground. Iron Man shields up as this helicopter explodes once it makes impact, and Kenneth, still alive, going over to find CLETUS, saying that he finally understands, telling CLETUS that even if you're able to be Iron Man and Spider-Man, you still need the Carnage symbiote. Your Carnage is out there in the stars and he is waiting for you. CLETUS, not wanting to hear any of this, he absorbs Kenneth. He absorbs everybody that he has had hold of. This puts him back up to 100%. As CLETUS continues his fight against Iron Man and the Iron Spider, Iron Man prepares for his final blow. saying that he needs about 5 minutes, that he's gonna use the nuclear option. We dive into the mind of CLETUS Kasady, into his own personal hive that he has created. And the whole time Kenneth, now in death, is still talking to him, still letting him know that you must go find Carnage, that Carnage is ascending to godhood, that you can have that kind of power, that you can be perfect. If you and Carnage get back together, you will be unstoppable. And so CLETUS, seeing that he might actually be losing this battle, he goes to leave. He goes to find Carnage. Miles not allowing him to leave, webbing him up the best he can, bringing him down to the ground, with Miles refusing to let him off planet. The two of them entwined, both of them going blow for blow. We see him try to use his Venom Punch. Knowing that this had worked before, he is hoping that it'll work again. Or at least, so he thought. That's where Iron Man makes his arrival, coming in at full force, going right into the chest of Carnage. He activates the EMP and he lets it detonate. And we see Carnage go in all directions. A huge EMP blast. In a matter of seconds, this battle is over. The battle has been won. Everyone in disbelief that it is over. Nobody sure if they actually took care of CLETUS. But by all appearances, he has been taken down. With Iron Man completely out of juice, he calls in a ride. Him and Miles, they head out to White Castle before he drops him off at home. With Miles getting home, saying hello to his family, hugs, kisses, all that good stuff. Back somewhere in the city, we see a small sliver left over, because CLETUS Kasady is not gone. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Alright, so this has finally come to a close. This last issue, like again, it was another 30 pages of fighting. Like, I love a good 30-page comic, don't get me wrong. But we just had 6 issues of this fight. And you're telling me the entire time, all Iron Man had to do was fly far enough away where he could come in, go into the chest of Carnage, and detonate an EMP. I don't understand why that didn't happen sooner. It makes no logical sense to me whatsoever. And then, at the end of the day, as everything's getting cleaned up, nobody notices that there is a giant pile of red goo just sitting in all the destruction. Iron Man takes off quickly, the Cape Killers take off very quickly, all the heroes leave the scene almost instantly. You would think that if you're truly concerned with CLETUS Kasady and him not being dead, that you might take 5 minutes and look around. Honestly, this story would have been better told in a giant size issue. You give us like 45 pages, 50 pages, and you could have told this story in a one-shot. I think my issue is that it dragged out over the course of 7 freaking issues, and it was one giant fight from issue 1 to issue 7. And then every time we think someone's defeated, nope, that's just a lie. Guess what? Here's a power-up. Here's the Iron Spider. Here's CLETUS absorbing a bunch of people and getting back up to 100%. None of it actually made any real good sense. It felt like it just was dragging on far too long for far too much. But it does seem like the overall outcome is CLETUS Kasady has finally come to the realization that he needs Carnage. And so we have the possibility of CLETUS and Carnage coming back together as one. We still don't know what Carnage is doing out there in the stars. We saw him with John Shade, but we really haven't seen him since. I think Carnage becoming a god, or at least going out there and wanting to kill gods, that's the much better story here. This was rather lackluster. It felt more like some page filler than anything else. But I am highly anticipating Carnage fighting against Null. I'm very excited to see what comes next, and if anything, this comic really did let us know that CLETUS Kasady and possibly Carnage are gonna create their own hive mind. And that opens the door for so much potential. If I were to rank this event, I would probably give it like a 5, maybe 6 out of 10. It's definitely not something that I'm gonna come back and read. It's definitely not something that I'm probably gonna even remember a year from now. But with that being said, visually, it was a lot of fun. The Dragon Slayer suit, the Iron Spider, CLETUS Kasady turning into a freaking dragon. There's a lot of very visual things that are absolutely stunning. But I would say that's probably the only thing that this comic really had going for it. But let me know your thoughts, let me know your theories. If you would like to get completely caught up on everything that happened in this event, be sure to check out the link in my description, as well as the top of this video. It will get you completely caught up on everything going on with this series. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership, much like Patreon having multiple different tiers, from $1 to $50, from loyalty badges to comics every single month. Not only are you helping out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. If you are unable to do that, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and with that being said, until the next breakdown.